Let's do this till we can't do it anymore.
Our youngest definitely wants to be a guest.
Yes.
Like early in the piece, before she can say whole sentences.
Yeah.
She's been having a little chat to herself in bed.
Our oldest, yeah.
We can hear her on the monitor. But there's a new addition to the family. Welcome.
Where? Mary, you want to say hi? She's awake. She's looking around.
It's pretty sweet. So tell me how you feel.
I feel good. I had a baby. It's pretty cool.
Do you want to bring that mic a little bit close to your mouth? Yeah.
No.
You had a baby. You had our baby girl.
Yeah. Another baby girl.
Second child.
Yeah. It's a week ago, 7 days ago. Hey. This time last week was your first night at home.
So 1 week ago, talk me through it.
Okay, so last Sunday at 6 p.m. I started feeling contractions, but like not very bad contractions, just, tightening down in the lower half of my abdomen and my back. And they were every like 17 to 25 minutes. They weren't too bad. And so that went on for a while and I was just keeping an eye on them. But it wasn't really painful, but it wasn't Braxton Hicks. It was starting. But I thought I'd try and go to sleep because they weren't so bad. And if we were going to get going, try and get a bit of rest. So went to bed, woke up at 7 minutes to midnight, having to go to the loo. Went and did a wee, checked on our older child, came back to bed, had a real contraction, my first real contraction, and my waters broke in bed. And then I woke you up. And then we got going.
Yeah, you did wake me up, and then I tried to spring into action, which was to wake up groggily.
Yeah. I can't remember what you said, but I was like, yeah, dude, you've got to get up. It's time to get up. But yeah, so really midnight I went into labour, I'm going to say, even though things started happening at 6 p.m. Went into labour at midnight. And then, called your auntie to come and look after our older child. And then by the time we left the house, contractions were 3 to 5 minutes apart. Got in the car, went to hospital, obviously called the midwife, so she met us there. And then we had labour until 6:26 in the morning, and I gave birth in the water, which is what I wanted to do last time as well. So that was great that we did that. And out came Mary, and you had front row seats. Where were you when this was all happening?
I was there. I was there the whole time.
Yeah.
I'm asking that the story be told, for the benefit of anyone who might be interested to hear, which is kind of us in the future.
Yeah, yeah.
But also there might be young parents who are interested to know what it's like blow by blow, hearing it firsthand. So
labour this time, last time was 10.5 hours, this time was 6.5 hours. And it was easier this time, was much easier. The thing I really struggled with last time was how long you're going to be, how long it takes to dilate to 10 centimetres can be quite taxing mentally, I think, just because you don't really know, you just have no idea how long it's going to take. You don't know where you're at unless you get checked, which I didn't do this time. But yeah, contractions were, some of them were better than others. Sometimes I had a 1 minute break in between contractions. Sometimes I had 5 minutes. Hey, darling. You okay? Telling the story of your birth. So yeah, you had decent breaks sometimes in between contractions, and part of me was thinking, am I progressing? I had moments where I was like, am I really progressing? Because I'm having decent breaks, which is nice, but I'd kind of rather just keep going and get it done. But it's just, that's normal to have varying time in between your contractions, and in between them, you're fine. There's no pain. There's no nothing. There she is.
Yeah, there's little Waz.
She'll be okay.
Little Waz from our eldest coming through.
But yeah, so that happened. So that was, when you're actually pushing the baby out, it's maybe, how long would you say that was? 15 minutes? 10 minutes?
Do
you have any sense of how long that took?
I think it was probably about, 15 minutes probably.
Yeah.
The actual process of the final push.
Yeah.
But again, how long's a piece of string?
Yeah.
I mean, you've got, all of this build up.
For sure. And I had 2 contractions before it was really on where I pushed a little bit, but that wasn't the 2 contractions right before she was coming out. So it was just like, and I had this urge to push, and I pushed, but she was still a little far up. And then I had a couple more contractions that were just contractions, and then I needed to push again. And then I think I had another regular contraction, and then it was game on. But last time when I gave birth and I was actually pushing our older child out, I felt no pain. I just felt pressure and frustration. It'd been 10 and a half hours. I really wanted her out. And so I was just like, let's get this baby out of me, please. But this time I definitely felt what was going on, and I felt the moment that I tore, which was interesting. I was conscious of it at the time. I was like, I didn't feel this last time. This actually doesn't feel very nice. But I was in the bath. It was great. And I was there lying on my back looking, and I caught glimpses of you sometimes. And that was pretty cool to see you kind of looking amazed and emotional, as you could see, obviously before me. I could feel everything, but you could see everything that I couldn't see or wasn't looking at. And then out she popped in the water, up onto my chest. And then there's the 3rd stage of labour, the placenta. Some say the most important stage.
Yeah. I'm on record as saying I don't think the placenta deserves its own stage of labour. I feel like it should be like a prologue, like a subsection, because the 2nd stage of labour is having your child. The first is the dilating the labour, and then the 2nd is the actual birth, and then the 3rd is the placenta. I just feel like it's anticlimactic. Like it shouldn't be. It needs to be like it's not even dessert. Like if you have a 3-course meal, like the placenta is not even like the dessert. I guess the dessert would be the child or something. Like the whole thing. It sounds like maybe we need to go and give our little G a cuddle.
Yeah. Which
is a bit of a bummer, but it's okay. We can just edit this or something. I'll just leave it running. Let's just give her a moment.
Yeah.
This is one of the awkward things about parenthood is like trying to do
anything.
Yeah, other stuff. And hoping that you're doing the right thing. Because we can hear, you might not be able to hear if you're listening to this.
She's quiet now.
Very clearly. You probably can't actually hear. We've got our first child on a monitor she's supposed to be asleep. She's getting there.
She had a nice chat before. That was nice. She's had a little wear. And now there she is.
Yeah, there's a few little wears happening.
It's not too bad though.
Still not too bad. So I think, the longer it goes on and like we talk about it, the more the guilt sets in.
Yeah.
So I think I'll just go.
Yeah. Do you want me to go?
No. No, look at you. I'll be back. And we're back.
So where were we? Talking about birth.
You were talking about we're talking about the 3rd stage of labour being the placenta.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It just feels like it sounds like the finale. Doesn't deserve a 3rd stage.
But it doesn't even, you have this miraculous moment where you're all emotional and you're meeting your child for the first time. For us, we were in the bath when that happened this time. You get out of the bath, you swaddle the baby, you're all loved up, in the moment, and then you get jabbed in the leg with an injection to get your placenta going, and it gets pulled out of you pretty much like minutes and minutes and minutes later. It's not as joyous as the previous moment.
Yeah. And I mean, getting back to our other discussions about birth and this sort of language around it, I think that's one of the hangovers of, I guess, like a medicalized approach. Like the placenta needs to come out.
Yeah.
that's important. You shouldn't forget it.
Yeah.
It definitely needs to, like, if you're thinking about stages of birth or like the things that need to happen around a birth, it's definitely in there. But it's just
subclause.
Yeah. I guess just the very idea of if you're going to divide things into stages, and just even using the words like stages, and because the idea of dividing the stage 1 and stage 2, even the idea of labor and then the delivery, like they're clearly different aspects of birth.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it's more for the hospital staff.
Sure.
Than for the mums and dads, I guess.
But you being a nurse, I guess it's impossible to ignore that terminology.
Yeah, but I'm fine with it. You're the one who has issue with it.
Well,
I think I'm okay with it.
I just have a poetic bent, you know me. And I think that the way you talk about things is important, and that's not just some aesthetic thing. Like it's very clear that the language that you put around experience, like the framing, is something very real. It's not just like some kind of superfluous thing. It doesn't matter what you call experiences or how you describe them. It's been shown time and time again in study after study that the way you describe or set up an experience for people determines how they experience it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so all of that aside, you're now the mother of 2.
Yeah.
And now the father of 2.
Yeah.
And
thanks, Mike.
That's okay. Take your time. Get comfy. Do what you got to do.
And yeah, surprisingly, 2 under 2, even though we've got 2 under 2, it's been easier emotionally this time around.
Yeah, I think it makes perfect sense if you think about it. I mean,
you know what you're doing. It's less stressful.
Yeah, the worries that you might have about
their behaviour.
Yeah, and the fact that whether you're doing the right thing or not.
Yeah, that's all gone.
Yeah, day 3 with our first little G was definitely challenging because of that factor of feeling uncertain. Speak of the angel.
I'm here.
Nothing about me without me.
I
think she'll be okay.
Yeah.
And so, in the absence of that uncertainty, you felt better?
Yeah. And I've always thought after our first child's birth, I always thought that was, the peaks and flows and me feeling crappy on a couple of days, thinking, I'm failing as a mother, even though I knew logically I wasn't doing that. You just worry about certain things. But I always thought that was hormonal, and I realize now it was just sleep deprivation, and I have less sleep deprivation this time around. Amazingly, with 2 kids, you wouldn't think that would be the case, but because you're less stressed and you go to bed and you know that she's fine and she's fed and she's dry and blah, 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 you just get a better night's sleep. So it's kind of rosy. It's all peaches and happiness this time. Most of the time. Gracie's struggling a bit today.
Sure, little G.
But she's doing so well.
So we're trying not to name, I guess we're not name dropping all the time. I think trying to keep some modicum of privacy for our kids. There's a whole subgenre of parenting channels on YouTube and whatnot, like Instagram, where people, I feel like, are using their kids as like collateral or some kind of product. It's kind of weird. So I prefer not to use their names all the time, just so they, when our corporate commercial overlords, track all this data, because it's going into the great tube of you owned by the great Google, and they'll be transcribing everything and noting down everyone's names and so on. So yeah, it's just nice to try and at least, I'm just, saying that as to explain for anyone who's wondering why we are talking about our kids in the third person and saying our first child and little, rather than using their full names.
Yeah. I may have dropped them a couple of times.
Yeah, that's okay. You'll be forgiven. So now we're in a week in.
Yeah.
Feeling much better. And
feeling much better the whole time.
Right.
Yeah. Sounds like feeling much better now that a week is over. It's been great the whole time.
Yeah.
I'd say. Would you say?
So that, yeah, I mean, of course I'm doing about half the work, considering I'm not feeding our new child with my body. But what I feel is definitely that confidence, and a thing that's been really helpful for me was going through the anxieties last time. I had a big struggle with always checking on little G and her breathing when she was asleep, which started to happen, which definitely was happening in the first 48 hours with our second little bub. But I think that was very helpful for me was actually looking up the statistics about worries about
SIDS.
Yeah, SIDS.
Yeah.
And realizing, I guess, the first time with little G, the first time realizing what SIDS actually was, and it's just a massive trip to realize, because I remember growing up in the 90s hearing about SIDS quite a lot, just around parenthood and stuff when, my mum had another baby and there was all this research going into preventing it and so on, and there were awareness campaigns. So I remember being in primary school and hearing about SIDS quite a lot. And I always just thought it was a disease that was killing kids, pneumonia or some other normal disease. And then to realize in my adulthood, just as I'm about to have our first child, that SIDS is actually just in terms of a syndrome, it's unlike any other disease in that it's just kind of like a name that's placed on a mysterious cluster of things that might kill a child, which is, obviously terrible and terrifying. So just realizing that it's just kind of, some of it is a accidental death and they know what's caused it, but it still gets called SIDS.
Yeah,
and sometimes
suffocation, always suffocation.
It's generally always suffocation.
Yeah.
But sometimes it might not be. I mean, sometimes I don't know. There's also some other rare.
Rarely they can't find the cause, and so they call it SIDS, but it's generally baby suffocated.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of crazy thing is that it's a thing that's one thing. It's called SIDS, but it's a combination of your child is suffocated and that's terrible, or we don't know how the child died.
Yeah.
Which is just, obviously the most awful thing that a parent can confront.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a scary thought. I kind of don't like talking about it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Oh, God. Of course. But looking up the stats, I'll just finish on this note. Looking up the stats made me realize here in Australia we're, 3 in 10,000 births result in a death from SIDS.
Yeah.
Just really...
It's very rare.
Yeah, it's super rare. And also just realizing that the risk factors that we're aware of in terms of proper swaddling and...
safe sleeping, sleeping on your back. We just know so much more now. And, there's research into that co-sleeping is not so bad if you do it properly. Pacifiers can help with their airway once they're an appropriate age to have a pacifier. Just, we know so much more now. So it's less scary.
Totally. And the final bit on this point, because I don't want to keep talking about it. Obviously, it's not the most fun thing to discuss as a new parent, is just simply becoming aware of the numbers around it really helped quell my anxiety.
Yeah.
And just it's unusual that statistics will do that, because usually if you're swimming in the ocean and you fear sharks or something, it doesn't matter how rare it is. You still
doesn't it? I think it's the same. It would matter.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Knowing that most of them happen off South Africa.
Sure.
You're safer in Australia than you are in South Africa in the water.
Fair enough. Okay, well, maybe I just haven't read the stats on sharks.
It's low.
I'm not particularly scared of sharks. I was just using it as an example.
I know, yeah.
Well, so with that unpleasantness out of the way, what do you feel like for the future?
I think 2 children is enough for us.
Nice. I'm on board with this.
2 children is perfect.
Certainly not going to start contradicting all previous discussions that we've had about this. It's like, oh, now we're live on the mic. Let's start disagreeing
pressuring
about
for more
this.
children. But that was helpful during labour as well, thinking, if everything goes according to plan, I won't be doing this again. So, yay, because it doesn't feel so great in some moments would be a helpful thought, and in other moments this is an amazing thing to be doing. What an experience! There's obviously nothing like this, and it's probably the last time I'm going to do it. So just be in the moment. So it was nice. It was really nice having that thought of completing a mission that we were on. I guess 2 happy, healthy children, and we're done.
Nice work.
And now we just hopefully raise nice people.
Yeah, that's the next challenge, huh?
Yeah. And I think we're doing well with our first. That's kind of, I think we're happy with what's happening there. She's not 2 yet, but so far she's an absolute delight, and she's really been good with this change. All things considered, she's doing really well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was something that I was definitely worried about.
Yeah.
That would be difficult.
Yeah.
But
I thought it would be difficult as well, but I thought it would be easier, at least me not being pregnant, even though we would have a new human to deal with as well. I just really didn't want it over being pregnant. Having a toddler wanting your attention, clambering all over you, it's actually a bit easier, I think, having the second child out of your body. I have more energy. It's way better. And we get to enjoy her as well. We've met her, getting to know her. It's all very lovely.
Yeah, she seems to be very switched on and engaged already.
Yeah.
Got eyes open.
No cross-eyed action.
No, very little. There's a little bit of cross-eye.
Depending where you're looking at her. If you're right up in front of her nose, she'll kind of go cross-eyed looking at you.
Yeah, but even if she was madly cross-eyed, it's again that thing where I was worried about every little thing.
Yeah.
With little G.
Yeah, you know that it's normal.
I was worried about her having an outie.
So silly.
I was like, one of the midwives mentioned, maybe she'll have an outie. And I was like, what? My perfect child will not have an outie.
Sorry to everyone out there who has an outie.
If you have an outie, it's fine. I just, it's just one of those things where it's like, I have an innie. I want her to be like me,
Well, I was thinking about the outie on this one when you were cutting the cord, because the umbilical cord, you and the midwife, it was like getting pulled away from her a bit. So her little belly button was getting pulled on. Uh-oh. And so I was trying to pull it back down, and I was thinking it might hurt, but I was thinking it might give her an outie as well, just harking back to the last time the cord was cut. Yeah.
And speaking of cutting the cord, this is something for like a hot tip for new parents, new dads particularly. The cord is tough. It's on TV and stuff when they cut the cord in any movie or whatever. The few
one
birth
snip
scenes,
and done.
Yeah, it's just like snip. It's like cutting like a ribbon, to open a shopping center or something. Not the case. It is a very tough little strand.
Yeah,
as
it's
it
like
should
gristle.
Be. It's pure gristle. It's pure gristle. So just be aware. So dads, when you got that scissor, don't think you're going to do it in like one swift cut. It's going to be like a little bit of like you got to get your elbow in there. Got to be prepared for that because don't be deterred. It's a special moment, but you got to kind of get ready to just kind of like work at it.
It's a tough little part of the organ.
Exactly.
Yeah. So when I gave birth and you were in the bath with me, what was that like?
So one thing that was a bit difficult was that the midwife said, like, don't touch the baby as it's coming out.
Right.
And when her head was partway in there, it was just, it's that usual thing of like, you want it to come out. I'm sure you did.
Yes.
And it's like,
because you have contractions and you can feel it so close to popping to that stage where it's out, and then the contraction ends and the baby goes back in again. And that happened maybe 3 times that I remember.
Yeah.
And that just helps, it helps stretch the skin and ideally prevent tearing. My tear was not as bad this time as last time, but you don't want it. When the moment you feel it going back inside, you're like, no, all that hard work.
Yeah.
That's the way it goes. So
sure.
Yes.
So
you're watching that happen.
So watching that happen and knowing, I mean, even if I was, even if she said, oh yeah, get your hands in there, like it wouldn't have helped.
No.
But it would have been nice because I caught little G last time.
Yeah.
So it would have been nice to kind of feel like I was part of that. I mean, and again, that's such a tiny, it's such a tiny thing, and just being able to witness it and the fact that you were in like perfect comfort in the water was glorious. So honestly, being able to watch it, it was just, I was so, and I've said this millions of times to you and to others. Seeing a live birth is, the highlight of your life when it's your child, for sure. And it's, the most amazing thing you can watch, I think, like a physical feat that has a positive outcome. And this is why last time when we were talking about like extreme sports and so on, and this is why I was saying that men would be so insufferable about birth, is because it's such an amazing thing to do. And you get a whole person out of it. And that's how we all arrive on the planet.
Yeah.
Through a birth process, and whatever that looks like for mothers, it's still, however it happens, it's a big thing to go through. And to be present for it is super sacred.
And to have it go according to your plan adds to that.
Definitely. That's all you want as a father. Your role is to help it happen with your baby mama and your mother's wishes. So it was, it felt amazing. It looked amazing. It was incredible to witness. And I was blown away by the birth of little G. I was blown away by the birth of our first child. And that went, every bit to plan as you could hope.
Yeah, that was a good birth.
It was a natural birth. It was a natural birth. Labour was not terribly long.
Yeah.
And so having seen, one birth go quite well, like not completely perfect, because you weren't in the water as you wanted to be.
Yeah, but I was happy where I was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, in the moment.
But that's what it's about. So there's no way that any father is ever going to be critical of a birth process that gives them a healthy child, But what makes it beautiful is seeing a process that you're in full control over, that is exactly what you envisaged and has the beautiful outcome as well. And to watch it so close, it's like why people buy front row tickets to anything, If you're in general admission or something and you're like up the back, you're at the concert, but the people who have got those like primo seats, like you're so close. And when you do have front row seats to something, you just see so much more. You're able to see the full expressions on everyone's face. And so I saw that with you, plus the actual emergence of our child as close as you can be without actually getting in the way.
And the other difference between this and a gig is that it cost us nothing.
Very little.
Except a large toll on one of our bodies.
Yeah. Again, that's why I guess the ticket front row concert metaphor is perfect for me, because it's like you've done all the effort. You do all the work. I'm just like in the audience cheering. Woo.
Sinking beers.
But that's, and the thing is, I guess for dads and for me, there's a slight difference. I'm not a completely passive participant. I'm not simply watching you. I'm encouraging you. But again, that's kind of a bit like a sports crowd or a music crowd. Having an appreciative audience, as someone who has played gigs for handfuls of people and for large numbers of people, the quality of the attention is really what matters. I think I've played for like large groups of people that weren't paying a huge amount of attention, and I've played for small groups of people that are giving you all of their attention, and the quality of the attention matters a lot. Like a small group of really tuned in people feels much more significant than a large
intimacy.
crowd.
Birth is a very intimate moment.
Yeah, and
when it's going well.
And to just kind of push this metaphor as far as it's possible to go.
Yeah.
It's like the most intimate experience that's possible to have is like being right there, you know, as close as you can to the birth of your own child is like a ticket that you can't buy. You know, there's no, and that's what makes it so sacred is that there's just things that are special. In history, humans have made a lot of mistakes trying to trade on spiritual matters. So like one of the biggest mistakes, for example, that the Catholic Church ever made was like the selling of indulgences when just, you know, rich dudes were going around and saying, how much is it to get into heaven? And the church itself sent blokes around.
Really?
Yeah. This is totally a thing. So they would go around and say, hey, where's your immortal soul going? It's probably going to hell because you're doing all this lustful stuff. But hey, if you give us,
3 gold shekels,
10,000 ducats or whatever, whatever it happens to be, then, boom.
You're in.
The Pope says you're in.
The Catholic Church.
And so, but that's clearly wrong. That's such a false way. And it's one of the worst things that the Catholic Church ever did.
Well.
Okay. Not even spiritually, yeah. You're right. That's a far cry. It's one of the many things that they've done wrong. But it's just you can't trade. There are certain things that you can't buy and sell. You shouldn't be able to. You can't buy and sell virtue. You can't buy and sell morality, ethics, honesty, and there's intimate, and that's kind of to bring this back to why we don't drop our kids' names into every sentence and plug their faces into every camera and smartphone, is because it makes me deeply uncomfortable when people seem to commercialize their children's youth. Right? It's been gross ever since Michael Jackson, or before. Any kind of child stardom is very strange and weird, and I think
it's just too easy to have that for your own kid these days. You don't have to be famous. You just have to have Facebook.
Well, the weirdest thing is that people are doing it for free. There's some of it is...
The thing I have to remember, though, is I know Facebook just keeps all of your stuff, of course, but my Facebook page is pretty public and open because I was trying to run a business a couple of years ago. But, and so when I see things, because of the way I run my social media, when I see other people just with videos of their children that are getting older and more aware of what's going on, and frankly, it's clear that they're going to be mortified that all of this stuff of like them in their underwear and, doing silly things at Christmas is going to be out for everybody to see is just terrible. But I have to remind myself that some people, of course, just have really closed groups, so it's not public and it's more private.
Yeah.
So that obviously makes a huge difference.
I'm talking not so much. The thing that makes me more uncomfortable is not. So I think having like a private Instagram for your kids is fine.
Yeah.
That's
great.
Good.
Yeah.
The things that I'm more concerned about is, people who are actually like building brands or whatever based on their kids'
YouTubey stuff.
Yeah, like the kind of YouTube, like the parenting channels and stuff that people, because I just find that stuff deeply uncomfortable. I've seen just like a handful of, it's like people will take their kids to Disneyland or whatever and just film every single moment. And I just think that stuff sucks.
Or even worse, videos of parents pranking their kids, doing mean things and finding it hilarious and mocking their children. There's a lot of out there.
Anyway, yeah. So it's just very cringeworthy. But it's extra. It's not just that it's cringeworthy. It's that I feel like it's so morally wrong.
It would be damaging.
And the trade-off is also so low. Like, you're trading in your kids. Like, you're only going to have a handful of kids, or however many kids you're going to have, and you only have a limited amount of time with them to kind of grow with them and shape them into who you want them to be. And certainly it's very clear that some kids are performers, like that's also true. So it might be that Michael Jackson's dad was like a really cruel guy who, abused his kids awfully. But it's also very clear that Michael Jackson, the young kid, was just an amazing performer. And in some sense, whether or not his dad had started a family band, he would have been that talented anyway. And so it's this weird halfway house between, there's that, like stage mother syndrome where everyone thinks their kid is special.
Yeah.
But some kids are just like insanely talented, and probably, if it's possible to introduce them to the world in a healthy way that doesn't completely wreck them forever, the proof is, I guess, you can't really figure that out until they're older.
It's happening, yeah.
And you look at someone like, Miley Cyrus is a really interesting example where she starts out as Hannah Montana. Am I getting that right? She was Hannah Montana.
Yeah, she was, yeah.
And so that seems to be, obviously Billy Ray Cyrus had gone round the track. Like, he was very, experienced in showbiz, etc. And so had this idea where it's like, okay, so my kid clearly is into this stuff. Here's a way that I can, do the Disney thing so she can have this young persona. And then I guess if she, that way it's separated from her, So I guess that's one way to do it, is like if your kid has like this barrier, like there's an image between them and their entire life, perhaps. That makes sense.
Yeah, but just child stars in general.
Yeah, of course. It's a recipe to be messed up.
Yeah.
But I guess the one of the things though is that just doing it on a whim for social media kudos, knowing, like kind of not knowing, or actually not just not knowing, but if you know what the social media companies are up to, which is, basically collecting all the data about you and monetizing it, and you're still kind of doing that in a blasé way, it's just pretty weird, because the trade-off is just so nebulous.
Yeah. So yeah, we have thousands of photos of our children. They're just in our house. They don't go anywhere else.
That's right. And they're shared, specifically to the people that want to see them.
Yeah.
Not to the entire universe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that works.
It's the way to do it.
It's the way to do it.
It's working.
Your mileage may vary I don't think there's anything wrong with sharing photos of your kids with your friends on social media and with your family group. But I do think that there's something odd and strange and something icky about
trying to monetize
them.
Yeah.
Particularly on social media.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, cool. So we're not doing that, right?
I don't think so. I think
good.
The conclusion is probably pretty safe that we're not going to do that.
Well, I don't know how much longer you've got in you.
Well, I'm fine. I'm always hungry. I'm getting hungry.
Okay.
Don't know if you read my rider, but I don't see any snacks in here.
Oh, damn. I've messed up in that department.
But yeah, just we're all good. Babies are great. Birth was great. Anyone who's about to give birth, we know a few people. You're going to do great.
Oh, yeah. We definitely need to give someone a pep talk.
Yeah.
But we can do that later.
Oh, yeah. No spoilers.
No spoilers.
Yeah. But yeah, it's amazing. It's truly amazing.
You did so well.
If you want to have a baby, it's the best thing you could ever do. So rewarding. They're so lovely.
Yeah.
And thanks.
Thank you.
I had a good support crew.
Oh, yeah.
And lots of coconut water.
Yeah, okay. So maybe just before we bounce, do you want to just talk about your tips for prep?
Tips for prep. So, sorry, I'm always tired. So, during birth, as I've said before, contractions they last about 50 seconds on average, and then when they're over, they are over. So you've got a break. It's not like you're suffering for however many hours you're in labour. Having that in mind is amazing, amazingly helpful. Also, when you're having contractions, and I was much better at this time because I'd learnt during the last labour, thanks to our fabulous midwife Tess, that when because you make noise, most women make noise, I made noise, but keeping it really low relaxes your body. As soon as you start to get high pitched, you're tensing up and stressing out a little bit. So just having a partner or yourself or the midwife or whoever's there remind you by making a low noise or letting you know to make a low noise just relaxes your whole body and makes it so much better. Coconut water is awesome. I took Hydrolyte, which was great. We had snacks for you. You got to think of whoever your support person is. If you've got someone there, you're just in your own head doing your thing. Whoever's with you is going to need snacks. So seaweed snacks are great. Nuts are great. Whatever you like. That's kind of non-perishable.
I would chime in there and say also bring something that's like reasonably substantial possibly.
Oh, yeah.
Just depending on how long it goes.
And if you've got a fridge or something.
Yeah. I would bring like a sandwich or something just to make sure that you have something a bit, more substantial.
Yeah.
Because snacks and nuts and so on are great and keep your energy up, but eventually, I had to visit the cafe afterwards and so on. It just would have been nice.
Timing worked out though, I guess. Born in the morning, cafe open. I'd like to celebrate with a pie, please, and some banana bread.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, having just all of that stuff is good.
Yeah. What else? Music, whatever music you're into. For the first birth, I thought I wanted different playlists to have like upbeat music, depending, you just don't know what labour's going to be like, and more relaxed music. And relaxed music was the way to go. And can we please plug? I think it resonated more with us having had a birth experience already, but the Samurai Cop song.
Oh yeah, that's actually part of the story. That's part of the story that's definitely worth telling.
So Dave Matthews, Samurai Cop.
The Dave Matthews Band.
Matthews Band. The song is called Samurai Cop, and it's about his child being born.
We assume. I mean, I never confirmed that.
I think it's a fair assumption. Listening to the song,
it's definitely It sounds like he had a kid for sure.
Yeah, and it's about he's singing about the labour process when the baby is coming out. And when I heard it, you found it and then let me listen to it. And it's just, tears. It's amazing listening to it because it just takes you back to that moment of birth. And then, so it was on our playlist and we heard it. I wanted to hear it when we arrived at hospital. And then there was another time I asked to hear it. And then, the playlist is just playing. We're in the bath. Things are happening. And right as the timing could not have been planned any better, right as she was coming out, the song started, and it starts, for anyone who hasn't heard it or has heard it, it starts with that, birth process of the baby coming out.
Yeah. The day you came. The lyrics are lovely. It's like the day you came, naked, afraid, your mother screams and pushes you the day you came.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
And I think if we hadn't had a baby, it wouldn't have been as sentimental. But having had a baby, knowing what that experience was like, what he's describing, it was just amazing listening to that a couple of times during labour.
Well, the first time that I heard it was in Italy when we were driving. We were with Gracie and we were driving between my relative's place and the Amalfi Coast. And I put on that album and I was listening to that first track. It's the first track of one of their new albums. that I hadn't heard. And I was like, oh, this totally sounds like he's had a baby. And we've just had a baby. And it's like, oh, cool. That's really nice. And then you took a shine to it. And it just became, the song which you wanted to hear, And the fact that it kind of came on serendipitously, the playlist probably has, like 100...
40, 50 songs or more?
Yeah, I don't know. I need to go back and look. But it has enough that it was extremely...
Oh, yeah. It was awesome. We were kind of looking at each other anyway, but it was just like, can you believe that this has started right at the second that it has started? What a time to be alive. What a time to be born.
Blessed by the algorithms.
Worked in our favour. But yeah, birth was great. Any other birth tips? I didn't take fairy lights. Fairy lights would have been nice. Keeping the room dim. There was one light. I didn't love that light that was outside the bathroom, so I just changed the way that I was facing because it was just, even though it wasn't a super bright light, it felt too bright. So I just turned around so I was facing away from that. What else is good?
Yeah, well, I think just in terms of the real recommendations have to do with the mentality. I think we discussed that quite a lot in the last discussion we had.
Yeah.
Which is, you got to have a solid plan. You've got to be very comfortable with what your, with all the people in your birth crew, I guess, so the Gaskin group and all the midwives there, we'd all met and loved them.
Yeah, they're great.
And then obviously we knew the facility.
Yeah.
Which was beautiful.
Gave birth in the same room as we did last time.
Yeah, the same room.
Yeah.
So we gave birth in the same room with our, and then we also had the same midwife come at the end, Tess.
Yeah.
Big shout outs. And also just huge love to the Gaskin group at the Royal Hospital for Women in Sydney.
They're so good.
You guys are amazing. Big ups to Beck. You're an amazing midwife.
Yeah.
Big ups to Tess and the whole crew, Tammy, everyone.
Yeah, it was great.
So
on that, if you can get in, if you're whatever hospital you're near, if they have a midwifery group practice, if you want a natural birth and you can get into that program, it's a game changer for having a really nice natural birth.
And just to recap, in our previous discussions, we've talked about all these things, but just getting informed, doing the Calm Birth course, looking at, if you're interested in natural birth, looking at the documentary Birth Story, featuring Ina May Gaskin, who's kind of the thought leader, pioneer woman behind a lot of these midwifery practices, which is so great. And then just feel like you're in control because, as we've discussed, we're two very rational people. I'm a lawyer, you're a nurse. We believe in science. We are not just kind of the typical super hippie, even though we do have,
hippie tendencies.
Hippie tendencies.
I'm very proud of.
Gone to Burning Man and so on, but the reality is that this is something that humanity, every single one of us got here through a birth process.
Yeah.
It's not something that should be completely in the hands of the medical establishment.
No.
It's really wonderful that the infant mortality rate is, so low, particularly here in Australia. We have such a fantastic health system, despite the best efforts of the powers that be to try and undermine it. We still have a wonderful health system with really great outcomes. And the fact that we have, this full spectrum of tools to make sure that, women can give birth safely, that's all fantastic. But it doesn't mean that the birth process should be this anodyne, sanitized process under neon lights.
Yeah.
I think something that's so important is that that mothers and women take control of, feel like they're in control of this process and feel like they can control the space in which they're having their child, who's involved and how they want to do it, being respected. That's the main thing. And then getting as much information as you can to make sure that you feel confident in what you want to happen, but then also being flexible in case
something goes wrong.
In case things change and you need intervention, then just being flexible and understanding where those paths take you.
Yeah.
So it's not
getting informed and making an informed decision.
Exactly. And Calm Birth, I think, is a great course.
Calm Birth is fabulous.
That helps you do that.
Yeah, because they don't treat you as though you're definitely going to have a natural birth or definitely going to have a C-section. They just cover everything. And I think that, ideally women are wanting to have natural births, and the way it comes across is if you decide to have what's it called, an epidural, this is what the needle looks like. If you're going to do this, this is how that process runs.
Yeah.
If this happens or you make this decision, this is what you're actually going to be, see it, touch it, feel it, let's talk about it. So it's not such a scary thing if and when it happens, whether or not you're deciding for that. If I wanted an epidural, I'm at least ahead of time seeing what that actually entails. And if I don't want one, but then something happens and it's decided I need one, I'm already aware of what that entails. And so it's great. And it was a really nice thing to do with your birth partner for a couple of days. Because I guess being a nurse, I knew a lot of that stuff. So it was really nice for you to be there, hearing that from someone and getting us prepared together. Yeah.
And just advice for dudes is just be engaged, go to stuff. Make sure that you should know, you should be on board with what's happening. It's not, obviously you're not doing the work, the real work, but the metaphor that we keep using is like you got
to know the song lyrics to the concert you're going to. Otherwise, what are you doing? If you're a real fan of the person that's on stage, you know the lyrics.
Well, I think the role is like roadie, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like some kind of combination of roadie and fan.
Yeah.
Because you have got to be, you've got to be super engaged. You've got to be with your mother, with your mum, with your mama.
Ready to switch out that guitar.
Yeah, that's right. Ready to change the strings.
Get me another coconut water or ice water.
Because they're the rock star, right? You just need to make sure that they've got everything you need. Like make sure that they've got the rider, like, or the charcuterie tray is like ready. But then you've got to be there to like pump them up and enjoy the show and just be super present. That's really important. Don't think that just because you're not doing the work that you can just sit back and just be like, oh, whatever you want, honey, and then just like watch the cricket.
Because you need to hear, hearing you say you're doing a really great job. This is fantastic. All the positive things that you said to me during labour made a difference.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay, I think that's it.
All right. Go have babies if you want to have babies.
Have babies if you want to have
babies. With confidence.
Yeah. And otherwise, just get really good at masturbating or whatever you want to do.
Or enjoy your life not having babies.
Yeah, exactly. Enjoy a child-free existence. Go on the child-free subreddit for a laugh, if you like. All right, good people. Thank you once again, Mama, for sharing.
Thanks for having us and our new addition isn't she lovely? She slept through the whole thing. Little muffin.
Thanks. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.